Alright guys, TacticalRab here again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The World Championship is only a few days away and the performances and results from that tournament will massively influence what happens in Rostermania. Some speculation has been going around that if OpTic do decide to make a change but don't bring in Pred for whatever reason, either they don't want him or he doesn't want to join, could a return for Envoy as the Prince of OpTic as he was a couple of years ago to that franchise actually be on the cards? Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. First of all, thought this is pretty cool. Kremp's living their life, right? Like the 24-hour of Le Mans ended earlier today, and Kremp was there over the course of the weekends. I mean, like, look at this guy. He's absolutely cheesing, isn't he? Because he's just loving life right now. He was out there in, I don't know if it was Berlin or wherever it was for the R1 Rennsport finals, and then he was off to Le Mans, of course, to watch the 24 hours of Le Mans. So really cool stuff. And, you know, Kremp's just, you know, FaZe are paying him to do all the stuff that he wants to do right now, which is pretty fantastic, I imagine. There's also this from Dashy to the final pushes going on. Last night there were some 8s between Dashy, Shotzzy, Simp and Drazah, Ghosty, Huke, Envoy on the other side of things. So we'll get back to Envoy in a few minutes time, but yeah, the final push is certainly in for these teams. We saw that going down with the 10k Zoomer Creator Clash tourney they did just a couple of days ago now, and then of course plenty of money gates going on as they usually do at this time in the final push for the season. Speaking of aBeZy, actually he does hold the record set last year for the most kills in a search and destroy map in a grand final. Kind of incredible that until aBeZy last season, the most was actually 14 from Nameless, because you think that games where people get 15 kills in search are relatively common. To be fair, it doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. But yeah, it never happened in the grand final until aBeZy last year got 16. Outside of that, what you'd usually get is about 12 or 13. CleanX, Cammy tied for third in 2021. aBeZy also is on this list again back in 2021. Cellium on that grand finals as well. But yeah, this is going to be a tough one to beat from aBeZy, because I don't know what the most kills in a grand final S&D map is ever. The most ever is 20 with Kremp back in Ghost and also Dashy back in World War II. I think there might have been 21 in Black Ops 4 from Huke and maybe from Journey as well from Heretics. But there was 5v5, slightly different story, and I think at least one of those maps, maybe both of them were off stream at the time, so we don't really know about that. But in the grand finals, the most might be 18. I think Gunless had 18 on Retaliation, Search and Destroy against OpTic way back at CWL. Was it Dallas or was it Atlanta? I always kind of forget. In the Infinite Warfare days, he won like 18 in 6 or something to win them the map 5 and force a second series, I think. So anyway, that might be an achievable number, but aBeZy is probably the most likely player to do it, let's be honest. This guy's been ridiculous as of late. Speaking of FaZe though, I did want to mention some of the numbers recently of their results in the last couple of years. They lost the grand finals back in 2020 to Dallas Empire in the finals. I mean, this wasn't even close. It was 5-1. That's when iLLeY, Huke, Shotzzy. I mean, Huke was just so deadpan here, but of course, Kremp and Clay getting the victory. But going back to that point, so that was on the 30th of August 2020 when they came second at the World Championship. They had already come second FaZe. Different team that year with Major Maniac and Priester, of course, but they already came second plenty of times that season. They were already the Silver Surfers, 2-5 in grand finals that year. Cold War, different story. Best team in the game by far, 4-1 in grand finals, only lost this one online to Toronto. But since Vanguard, their finals record again is pretty tragic. Like, they've made so many finals. Think about how many finals they've made since the start of the CDL. Like, this is more than any other team by a long shot. But they have lost a lot of them, given how good they are. Like, last year was criminal, all the second places. The fact that they would be the best team up until the finals, where they were always the second best. Losing the World Championship last year in the finals against the Thieves, that was painful. Bring in Slasher, finally win one in Boston, but then make the grand finals at Major 5 and get outclassed again by the subliners. Okay, maybe they didn't get outclassed, it was close enough, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? So, I mean, look at this record recently. Out of the last 6 grand finals, they've lost 5 of them, which is, like, if they were to go to champs and lose, they would have lost 6 of their last 7 grand finals. And maybe that's just one of these things where you know, you toss a coin a number of times, and occasionally it's going to come up with plenty of tails in a row. But still, it does feel like there is maybe something else going on there for FaZe, that they just don't really have the ice when it comes to the final championship Sunday match. If they were to make the grand finals here and win it, then it would be, you know, a different story. And I do think Slasher has helped them in some sense there as well. But if they were to come second again at champs here, like, that really would be a dagger to these guys, especially given that was the one thing they needed to improve on from last season. And if they were to come second at champs again, they haven't necessarily done that so much. Thought this was nice from Karma and Holly, actually. 9 years together as of yesterday, pretty interesting. I don't know what we're going to see from Karma come champs, actually, just because we know that Karma came out on stage with those guys at Major 5. I don't think it necessarily affected their play positively or negatively, but, you know, we did wonder whether having Karma on board with those guys would help them in some of those clutch moments. Turns out then everybody turned up anyway that weekend in Toronto. So we'll see what Karma actually gets up to. But speaking of OpTic, we've got to wonder what they're going to do in the off-season, because Karma even made the point himself that even if they win champs, they might still have to consider making a change, because however that team performs at the World Championship, we know they have a very high ceiling and a very low floor. They had that low floor all the way back at Major 3, right, when they played at the start of that tournament, nearly went out to London, showed the same low floor at Major 5 in Toronto, but between those two dates, they were playing it very well, if not the best team in the entire game. So difficult to say what OpTic should do, but of course the World Championship result will determine a lot of that. Pred is the expected outcome here. Pred to OpTic, people were expected to happen. It might not happen though. Maybe Pred doesn't want to go to OpTic for whatever reason. He did before, he probably still does, but we don't exactly know what his thought process is going into the off-season with salaries and other factors in play. He made the point that he wants to make this decision for the next effectively 3 years. So, you know, you'd think OpTic is the most likely, but it's not exactly guaranteed. If they don't get Pred, maybe FaZe come along and say, hey, Pred, we want you on our team. You're going to be in all the finals. Like, you know, you're going to win a lot of events and really cement your legacy. And Pred might think, well, you know what, do I join OpTic? Do I join FaZe to play with those guys, to make all the finals, to really win a lot of events and stuff like this? Maybe I do. So if they can't get Pred, what's the alternative?
Am I crazy though? I don't feel like any of these teams are going to offer the Thieves players more money than they would get on Thieves. So I almost feel like it's kind of pointless for them to even be unrestricted free agents. Like they're probably going to get the same amount of money and resign.
The only way that
Thieves might not run it back. Thieves might not run it back with their full 4 though. They may actually want to make.
I mean, they'll still probably keep like 3 of those guys.
And here's what I know about Thieves. Like I don't think that Thieves is out here with the highest contracts in the league. As far as I know, how they run things there, like they're somewhat not like amazingly cost conscious, like Vegas level, but like they still pay good. They don't pay as well as say like Atlanta FaZe or OpTic probably pay their players.
What about Drazah to OpTic? Can you see that happening?
Oh man, Drazah to OpTic for who? For Jesus Christ, that'd be hilarious. I mean, the OpTic situation's interesting, right? Like, you know, they're not gonna drop Ant. Bruce is a free agent, but expect him to re-sign with OpTic. I think you probably want to keep Dan. I think you would have a number of things you would have to solve if you let him walk. Like, it's not the worst idea, but
I could see a world where
I could see Envoy coming in for fucking Collar if they don't get Pred.
I could see a world where if
Envoy's on his bullshit right now.
So I thought some interesting discussion there as well on the salaries that LA Thieves are currently paying, because we believe last year, especially according to what Clayster had to say, and I think this was confirmed as well, that they did indeed take a pay cut last year. They won champs last season and they took a pay cut to keep playing together because Thieves realized that this esports winter was coming and therefore they couldn't afford all the salaries. So they had to take some pay cuts, and it does seem like FaZe and OpTic and potentially even a team like New York with a lot of cash they're paying Hydra could be paying higher salaries than Thieves. Given the fact that they're all unrestricted free agents, it seems highly unlikely to me that team of 4 stays together into next year unless they straight up win champs, which is possible for Thieves, but it's far from guaranteed. We know that Envoy is still a pretty beloved member of the Green Wall in some sense. He joined that team during the Chicago Huntsman days, came along for the OpTic Chicago ride as well. Had a pretty good individual year, I think, there. I was never super sold, I'm not gonna lie, in 4v4 on the Envoy Scump duo. I think it kind of worked sometimes, but just the way they played wasn't as optimal as, you know, Simp and aBeZy were, for example, at that season, with the fast aggro guy and the other more heavily slaying guy. But Envoy, in a world where he's teaming with Shotzzy, could be a very different story. We saw earlier today, many people believe that Envoy is a pretty underrated player. Certainly the pros believe that themselves. I think he's been pretty good this year for Thieves, despite the fact that it's probably Octane and Drazah that have stolen most of the limelight. But I think Envoy's been pretty good on the whole, and it was a sad day for many OpTic fans when he departed from OpTic, right? You guys remember the process that came out when, you know, he was tearing up and everything because he was there, then they did the merger, they decided they were going to move in a different direction, Scump obviously wasn't going to go anywhere, and they were going to bring Shotzzy in, which made sense, it wasn't a bad decision. And then Envoy went to Thieves, and, you know, many have called him the Dark Prince in some some sense, right? Because like Hex was setting Envoy up to be the next Scump in some ways, calling him the Prince and all this, and it was understandable why they did that. Turned out that Shotzzy was really going to be that guy to take, OpTic's content to the next level, but still, since Envoy left, he's had a pretty good record against OpTic, but I'm sure, he feels still part of that family to a certain degree. And we know how well Scump and others like get on with Envoy, for example, and they play a fair bit with him as well. So I do wonder whether that's at least a consideration. Clearly, from my perspective, it makes most sense to get Pred if they are going to make a change. They might not want to make a change, depending on how results go, but Pred would be the guy to get, I think. But if you can't get him for whatever reason, Envoy should be number 2. He is an unrestricted free agent. I think he makes a lot of sense in that team. Playing with Shotzzy is always going to make you look really good as well anyway, just the way that Shotzzy plays. So I think Envoy could do a great job for OpTic in that case, and it would somewhat close the loop in some sense, that he leaves and then he comes back, and it could be really interesting. Just to bring up for you guys once again here, so Jacob Hale, this is his contract database that you guys can find on his Twitter, and I'll leave a link down below for you guys again. So these are all the contracts. If you guys haven't seen this before, I've shared it a few times. This might have been updated over the last couple of days, but I think this is pretty much what we believe it's going to be going into champs, with iLLeY's situation somewhat unclear, but I believe now released to our understanding over the last couple of days. But yeah, all of the Thieves guys option extended, therefore free agents. And of all the players on Thieves, I actually think the least likely to be there next year. I'm not saying this likelihood is like 90% or anything, but I think of all the 4 players, the player that I would most be confident will play elsewhere next year is possibly Envoy, because I think that Octane will maybe get an offer from a team like FaZe, but if he doesn't, he'll probably want to stay on Thieves. I think that's going to be the same story for Kenny. So then you've got Drazah and Envoy, and I don't know, Drazah might get a better offer from somewhere else, definitely possible. They even discussed it there, right? Drazah to OpTic, could that be a thing? That'd be really strange and entertaining, but I don't really see it. But maybe there's a team like New York that looks at Drazah or something like that. And then Envoy is another player that I definitely think there's a chance that he could depart. What would Thieves do if that was the case? What SMG would they bring in? Who knows? But yeah, I just think that might be a likely outcome just to look at, right? Still, the most likely is probably Pred goes into that team, but if it doesn't happen, Envoy could well be an excellent backup plan. So very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Just to mention this real quick here from Bance, so he's had a very tumultuous time at World Championships over the last several years. The Black Ops 4 season, far from optimal, but yes, second in Black Ops 3 back in 2016 on Splice at the time, second in 2021 in Cold War. So yeah, 2 Champs Grand Finals, 2 defeats. This year is going to be probably even harder to achieve, just because the Minnesota Rokkr aren't expected to make Sunday or anything, but we'll see how it goes. But very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.